Welcome to Test, ladies and gentlemen. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. I figured I would go out with my Astros jersey. As you guys know, I posted a couple days ago. This is going to be my last video for a little while. I'm not sure what that while is. I do have to go down to out of state, to take care of some family business. So it's kind of up in the air, exactly when I'm going to be back. I'm definitely going to be missing the rest of this tournament. I should be back by the U.S. Championships because that's in, that's at least a week and a half from now. I didn't check the date, but I know it's like the first week or two in October or something like that. So let me get topped off here. I did get cleaned up, so I feel kind of fresh at least. Let me get my hat on. Bam. All right, so like I said, this is I'm kind of not on a time limit, but I like driving during the daytime. It just makes things a little easier. I did basically just decide I was going to do just whatever the first game was for the day because they're actually just getting done with the second game now, and they have two other games. So they play throughout the day. So I need to kind of get packed up and get going. So like I said, this is the first game of the 5th round. Win, draw, or loss is what it has to be. So for all of my people in the Philippines, I will say mabuhay to you. Kamusta na aking makaibigan. Let me see. There was a phrase. What I did was I kind of played with some words yesterday. So let me see what the phrase was. Hello, ulit. I forgot what I had created a sentence yesterday that I said on video. I can't remember the sentence. I think it was salamat ulit po sa nanonood king my video. Okay, cool. Kind of that was it. I was just trying to say thank you for watching my videos just in a slightly different way. I'm starting to kind of get to a point in Tagalog where I'm starting to learn enough words that I can kind of somewhat create my own sentences and just kind of tweak existing sentences. So I'm getting a little bit better. I'm not having to use a translator as much. There are still a few phrases and comments that people leave that I obviously do have to go to the translator. But as time goes on, I think I'll just keep continuing to get better. So I appreciate that very much. Anybody who is coming from the Netherlands, I will say hello and dankia. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by. I've talked enough. This is not a very long game at all. So, I mean, I'll probably be under 10 or 11 minutes for this one. So appreciate you guys sticking around. But if you guys are ready to go, let's take a look and see what we have for this game. So we have knight to f3, and automatically you guys know this starts off the ready, but it almost never just continues to be a ready. Usually it transposes into something else. We do see d5. We got e3, knight coming to f6. We see b3, bishop to f5. We see bishop to e2. And as you guys can see, even though it still says it's a ready, this looks very similar to a Nimzo Larsen. If you were to have like b3 and then bishop coming to b2, and then you kind of have like a little rapid development and castling on the king side. This is very common of the Nimzo Larsen. And, you're just trying to take advantage, take control over that diagonal. We do see h6. Bishop comes to a3. Knight b comes to d7. This is a very logical thing to kind of do because you are trying to either prevent castling or make castling very hard. So knight b to d7 is preventing that because after we see c4 and then we see e6, now we have bishop taking f8 and then knight taking f8. And as you guys can see, those of you who are familiar with the rules of castling, black is still capable of castling in this game because this king and the rook have not moved at all. So this knight has basically helped not, making the rook or the king have to capture that bishop. So we do have castles by white. Knight 8 comes back to d7. As I always say, both of these knights can both come to this square. So since they are on the same file, you have to note exactly which one came. So either knight 6 to d7 or knight 8 to d7. We do have knight to c3, and then black does castle in this position. And then after d4, we see a5, and this is the novelty of the game. So move 10. It's not the best move in the position, but it definitely makes some logical positional sense because, a5 is just grabbing some space. you know, one of the things that you want to be paying attention to is that, of course, you're developing your pieces when you're playing the game out of the opening. That's one of the main objectives of the opening. But once you have completed that, you want to kind of start trying to search and see where you can maybe gain some space and start to try to push your position into the opponent's position. So A5 is doing that. It's also, you know, possibly after a knight move or something like that, you know, you're trying to damage, you know, white's pawn structure. So just stuff like that. As you guys are familiar, this is kind of like a hook situation here. So we do have A3. Queen comes over to E7. We do see queen over to C1. We got C6. Queen comes to B2. We see bishop down to G4. And, I mean, we're not really worried about this move because we just have H3, bishop takes F3, bishop takes F3. And you guys can see that as far as minor pieces are concerned, we have two knights against a bishop and a knight. And this actually does become very relevant here pretty soon. Rook F comes to D8. We see Rook F to D1. We're anticipating some possible trades here, which will at least half open this file. And then maybe an E4 push, and we're going to be having some openness coming up in the middle. So we're just trying to get our rooks ready for this to occur. Knight comes over to B6. We do see bishop back to E2. You know, we're looking at after trades, you know, the bishop is supporting this pawn and the knight can't just capture. So knight comes back to C8. And, I mean, it's actually giving white a nice slight advantage just simply because the pieces for white are a little bit better for black. This knight is nicely placed, the queen is, but these rooks are now unconnected, and this knight has kind of backed back up to the back rank. So, you know, you can see that white is just a little bit further ahead. You know, they have a little bit more to show for their position. And then we do see C5, so white is grabbing even more space and actually taking a lot of real estate away from black. So, you know, I actually just got done doing this in a game. I had a situation where my pawn structure was like this. I had pawns on these squares, and this knight was literally like miserable. The knight couldn't come here. And actually, I had a pawn. I actually had a pawn here, too. So I had pawns like this. So this knight literally didn't have any way of coming anywhere. So it was miserable for that opponent. But we do see B5 trying to, you know, counterattack that with getting some space over here. We have B4 and then we have A4. And before we actually get into what was played in the game, there is a move, a very sound, strong positional move that is in the position for white. So if you want to go ahead and pause the video and try to see what that move was, go ahead and do so. Okay, so as some of you guys might have guessed, it is a sacrifice. At least if you guessed it was a sacrifice, then you have definitely a great eye. I think this is, you know, one of those moves that is like almost impossible to find. I don't want to say it's impossible, but I mean, Wesley So didn't actually see this move in the game. He might have calculated it, but I'm pretty sure he calculated it, but he probably threw it away like, no, that's not good enough. But it actually is. And the move is actually knight takes B5. So if you guess knight takes B5, I'm scared of you, man. Like, I mean, it's an insane move to be finding. It doesn't seem like it gives you anything. You're thinking, okay, why am I just throwing my knight away over here? But after I get done with a few moves, you will see exactly why you sacrificed on B5. And it is actually by far the strongest move in the position. What we actually saw Wesley So playing in the game, which was also very positional, was F4. I mean, it's a legitimate move. It's not like, I mean, all these other options are blunders, but it's just not as explosive as that knight takes B5. F4 is just simply preventing a E5 pawn push. You know, you have the ability, I kind of went too far. You kind of have the ability in this position to push this pawn and start to try to open the game. You especially want this knight to get free because as you can see, this knight is actually kind of messed up. But if we actually go into, like I said, knight takes B5, of course you're going to be accepting with pawn takes B5. Bishop is going to be taking B5, and then you have queen over to B7, and then the bishop just simply backs up to D3. Now you have given up a piece, but you have given yourself a really insane pawn structure where, I mean, you move rook A to B1 and rook D to C1, and you are completely just pushing these pawns forward. You know, after F3, preventing the knight from coming here. I mean, you would literally have a situation where black is going to be playing completely defensive chess, just trying to make sure that these pawns don't go further than this 6th rank. So this sacrifice is well worth the piece that you gave up. And you did get two pawns back for that. But like I said, after a4, we did see f4, preventing the pushing of pawns. We do see knight up to e4. Knight takes e4, pawn takes e4, and then we have king sidestepping over to h2. We have g5, and I mean, I don't really agree with this move personally, because this kind of goes back to what I said a few games ago. I mean, this king is very open now. You know, this position is not ideal for, you know, to be doing in front of the king. So, I mean, it just messes with the safety of the king. So be careful with doing this. We do see rook to f1, and then we see f5. And something that I wanted to mention before, we do have a knight versus a bishop. So because of the nature of knights, black is attempting to try to close the game as much as possible. So that way, I mean, this knight can hop around and maybe, like, you know, end up here. It's trying to create some type of an outpost over here on the king side, especially if you can make a square on a dark square. That would be completely ideal. And there really isn't any dark square ability right now. So we do see g4. White is trying to do the opposite. White is trying to keep the position as open as possible. So when you're playing your games, you're playing with the knight, you want to try to strive for closing the position. And when you're playing with the bishop, you're wanting to strive to open the game as much as possible, to give your bishop as much movability as possible. So you can definitely see the struggle here in this game. Queen does come to f6. We see queen over to a2, trying to attempt to pin this this pawn down to the king. But we do see king sidestepping to h8, and so we've now made that irrelevant. Pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, f5. Pawn takes g5, pawn takes g5, and then we do see bishop to g4. And I mean, you definitely have a pin going on here. You are threatening to take the pawn, but the knight comes and saves just in time with the knight to e7. And this is a very highly crucial position in the game. You have really only two moves that make somewhat logical sense in this position. You have queen over to g2, and this is simply just threatening to try to take this pawn off the board and, you know, really take advantage of this pin. And then the other move is, you know, rook up to f2, you know, just wanting to try to add as much pressure as possible onto this file, seeing if you can't try to do something. Unfortunately, neither one of those moves are really any good, because they're highly defendable by black, and this is just a completely one position for black. But after knight came to e7, we actually saw a blunder by Wesley. So I don't think he calculated far enough into this sacrifice, and he ended up just kind of giving away a piece. So he actually went rook takes f5. After knight takes f5, it looks really nice visually to go rook to f1, but I think that the move that he didn't calculate was rook down to d5. And this is simply just getting, you know, the rook out of the way of the other rook, and it is just the perfect defense for the sacrifice of that piece. You know, if you were to sidestep over here like this, then yes, you definitely would have a situation where you can be taking here with either the bishop or the rook, and you've just gotten your piece back. But Anish Giri, you know, finds rook down to d5. Now, the problem is, if you try to add pressure to this pin with queen to f2, you simply see rook over to d8. And, I mean, you just lost an entire piece. So it is after rook to d5 that Wesley So realizes the defense that Anish Giri has, and he does resign the game. So that was an unfortunate, you know, oversight by Wesley So. I would have liked to have been able to kind of go through all the games from the day like I normally do and kind of pick and choose which one I wanted to do. But for the sake of getting a video done, I went ahead and just did this first video. So unfortunately, I've just shown Wesley So lose 2 straight games, which I like literally never do. So I apologize about that. Sorry to my people. And, you know, hopefully Wesley So, he does pretty good. But like I said, I'm going to be gone. So I won't have the ability to really make any more games for this tournament. I'll try to, when I get back, I'll try to kind of catch up and see, you know, kind of what games I missed that I can do. But I appreciate everybody very much. Thank you for anybody coming from the Netherlands. Maraming salamat, salamat po sa nanonood ng aking mga video, aking mga kaibigan. Makito tayo mamaya, paalam, and I will see everybody next time.